Can an American president or ex-president declassify top secret documents by just thinking about it, without alerting the CIA or the FBI or the Pentagon or going through any of the normal process at all? Former President Trump is making exactly that extraordinary claim. But some Republicans are already breaking ranks and rebutting his line of defense for having a stash of highly sensitive documents at Mar-a-Lago.
I think there's a process for declassifying documents, and I think it ought to be adhered to and followed. And I think that should apply to anybody who has access to or deals with classified information.
I believe there's a formal process that needs to go through, that needs to be gone through and documented. There is a process that one must go through. What that is, I honestly don't know, but I'll find out.
Process. Mr. Trump made the declassification claim during an interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News last night.
What was your process to declassify?
There doesn't have to be a process, as I understand it. You know, there's different people say different things, but as I understand, there doesn't have to be. If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it.
Like with a microwave. It's one thing to make that argument in public, another for lawyers to say as much in court, and Mr. Trump's have not. And they've refused to say which, if any, of those documents that the former president may have declassified. The appeals court is now allowing the Justice Department to resume using the seized classified documents in its criminal investigation. The panel blasted a Trump-appointed judge's decision to temporarily block investigators from using them. In their ruling, the appeals court wrote, "For our part, we cannot discern why Mr. Trump would have an individual interest in or need for any of the 100 documents with classification markings. There is no evidence that any of these records were declassified. And Mr. Trump has not even attempted to show that he has a need to know the information contained in the classified documents, government documents." The appeals court is a panel of 3 judges, 2 of them Trump appointed. They were all in agreement. For legal analysis, Danny Savalos is here, criminal defense attorney, NBC News legal analyst. Danny, even the Trump-appointed judges rejected this declassification, telepathy kind of claim. Is this finally to bed?
It was a red herring always to begin with, because even if Trump somehow did declassify via telepathy or tweet or any other way, it doesn't change the fundamental argument, the other argument, that these documents are not his, that he doesn't have what the court calls an individual interest in these documents, which is what he needed to have a case. And so the appellate court analyzed that, and they said, well, because at least as to these 100 documents, there is no individual interest a former president has in classified documents, then this all is unimportant at this point. And by the way, this is not an argument that Trump's lawyers are actually making in court. This is an argument that Trump is making outside of court. And then even this whole declassify by thinking is yet another red herring. When you saw some of those members of Congress saying there's a process, well, you might have that argument if Trump had tried to declassify via tweet or something he said offhandedly. He didn't declassify anything. There is no such thing as a legal or executive action.
It doesn't matter because they're not his. They're the government's.
Right.
It doesn't matter if they're declassified, ripped to shreds. It doesn't matter. They don't belong to him. They belong to the government. And here's another thing he told Hannity. He goes, doesn't matter if you're going to send him to Mar-a-Lago. What he had earlier said that must have been some sort of accident. He didn't say anything about an accident talking to Sean last night.
Well, again, he doesn't keep track of his own stories, and he's going to get himself into trouble because he also said, I believe, to Mar-a-Lago or whatever. Now, it's a common Trump end of a sentence where he adds some sort of catch-all or wherever or whatever.
To my understanding.
But if you're sending him to Mar-a-Lago and wherever, where's wherever? Because that's important, too, if these were, in fact, classified documents, which the special master is going to get to anyway. Let's take a step back. Trump's entire case here only delays the inevitable.
Well, that's all he ever tries to do, though, isn't it?
Win.
I mean, the evidence suggests time after time after time, it's factual, not opinion. The evidence suggests what he does is delay, and for him, it almost always works.
It does work. That's the amazing thing, is that it's a litigation strategy that often works. And you could make the argument that it's worked 100% of the time up until now, because he's never been indicted. He rarely ends up taking a lot of these cases to court. He fights them all the way up to the Supreme Court, and will keep fighting at any chance.
I want to get this in now. The special master today ordered the Trump team to back up claims that the FBI planted evidence at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, can anybody argue that this judge, Judge Dearie, isn't being fair here? Isn't he giving them every opportunity to back up what the former president suggests in public?
This has been the theme of Judge Dearie in his short tenure as special master. Hey, you say Trump declassified these documents? Show me. And when the lawyers say, well, that might have to do with a defense if he's ever indicted, he says, no, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you're also saying the FBI planted documents, listen, this is something that federal judges take very seriously. And lawyers don't make that argument unless they have some actual evidence, because every client wants to raise the whole FBI planted the evidence. But lawyers know that you need some real evidence that the FBI did that before you actually say it in open court or to a judge in his or her presence.
Danny Cevallos, thank you. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.